Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Reborn in Highschool DxD as a Lucifuge. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 121, First Encounter with the Dragon Princess and Arrival at the Floating Island. Roy stood on the deck of the airship, watching the clouds drift by at a dizzying speed. He looked down at the vast, eerie forest stretching out below. "You're Roy, the representative from Aricia Spirit Academy, right?" a voice suddenly asked from behind him. Roy turned around and saw a beautiful girl with shoulder-length black hair and a beret. She wore a crisp, black military uniform and had a determined look in her eyes. Roy instantly recognized her as Leonora Lancaster, the Princess of Dracunia and the captain of the Knights of the Dragon Emperor. "Who are you? And how do you know my name?" Roy asked with a smile. "You're famous, the only male elementalist on the continent," Leonora replied, her expression serious. Despite her delicate appearance, she had a sharp, prickly aura. "And you're known for toying with girls and then abandoning them. You're the enemy of all women." Roy was speechless. Where had she heard that rumor? Don't try to deny it. "Dracunia has the best intelligence network on the continent," Leonora declared confidently. "So, what do you want?" Roy asked, crossing his arms and looking at her with amusement. Leonora blushed for some reason. I am here to cut off your..." She averted her gaze and suddenly drew her sword, swinging it towards Roy's lower body. "What exactly are you trying to cut off?" Roy asked, raising an eyebrow as he effortlessly caught her sword between two fingers. Leonora struggled to pull her sword back, but it wouldn't budge. You're... Ugh. Do you want me to say it out loud?" "You pervert," she exclaimed, tears welling up in her eyes. Roy chuckled and released her sword. Clang! Leonora, her face flushed with anger, swung her sword again. Roy casually sidestepped, dodging the attack. The sword slammed into the floor. The airship's floor shattered. Leonora glared at Roy, her gaze fixated on his lower body. Just as her blush deepened, she quickly averted her eyes again. "Please let me cut that off, Roy," she pleaded, pulling her sword from the floor and assuming a fighting stance. "If I let you run wild during the blade dance and attack my subordinates, it'll be quite troublesome." "Well, even if it's a rumor, being chased around by a girl with a sword isn't exactly pleasant. If you attack again, I'll have to punish you," Roy warned with a sigh. "Humph. Lies. You're a perverted, sadistic demon king." Leonora glared at him, clearly not believing his words. She swung her sword again. Roy shook his head and caught her sword between two fingers once more. "Why won't you listen? Then I'll have to punish you." He was a bit exasperated by this stubborn girl. But a punishment was in order. He held her sword with one hand and reached towards her forehead with the other. Am I going to be subjected to those kinds of things?" Leonora's mind raced, her face flushing as she closed her eyes tightly. Roy flicked her forehead. Flick! Ow! Leonora yelped, clutching her forehead and forgetting about her sword. Meanwhile, Claire, Rinslet, Fianna, and Ellis were observing the scene from a corner. Look! Roy has another girl after him." "I knew it. Another girl is throwing herself at him. Should we stop her?" "Wait, she doesn't seem very friendly. Roy made that girl cry." The four girls watched with amusement. Roy, of course, had noticed them, but he didn't say anything. Suddenly, boom! A deafening roar shook the airship violently. Ah! Claire lost her balance and fell. "You're so clumsy," Roy said, catching her before she could hit the deck. "Thanks," Claire mumbled, blushing. "What was that?" Rinslet exclaimed, looking down at the churning sea of clouds. A massive shadow loomed over them. The clouds parted, and a monstrous creature emerged. It was about 10 meters long and resembled a catfish. But unlike a catfish, it had a single, giant red eye on its head. And it was flying in the air, not swimming in the water. "Is that a monster?" Claire asked, her voice filled with uncertainty. "No, wait, could that be the destroyer spirit, Ungoliant?" Leonora asked, her brow furrowed. "Yes, that's the destroyer spirit, Ungoliant," Roy confirmed. He recognized it as the spirit controlled by Muir Allenstarl. Muir was Rubia's subordinate. Unlike in the original story, Muir was completely loyal to Rubia. Roy wondered why Rubia would send her to attack this airship. The military destroyer spirit, which resembled a giant catfish, roared and charged towards them. Although the airship had a wind barrier, it wasn't designed for combat. If that behemoth rammed into them, they would be in trouble. Alarms blared throughout the airship. The ship swerved, trying to evade the attack. It was a new model with excellent maneuverability. But even the best maneuverability was no match for the agility of a spirit. Just as the monster was about to collide with the airship, Roy took action. He summoned his Ice Rose sword and swung it. Ice breathing, second form, Ice Dragon Swirling Tail. An ice dragon materialized, roaring silently as it lunged towards the monstrous catfish. Roar! The catfish roared, sensing danger, and charged towards the ice dragon. The two creatures collided. The ice dragon bit into the catfish, and its body instantly froze. The Ungoliant plummeted towards the ground. "Amazing!" Leonora gasped, staring at Roy in awe. She couldn't believe he had so easily defeated the destroyer spirit. Even she would have struggled against such a powerful opponent. Claire and the others weren't as surprised. They had already witnessed his strength. "Roy, you didn't use me again. I'm not happy." Est pouted, emerging from her spirit seal. "Well, it was too weak," Roy explained, trying to appease her. "I don't care. You didn't use me last time either. I'm angry." Est was referring to the incident with the rampaging strategic class elemental at the military selection. Roy didn't see the need to use Est or Run against such weak opponents. Speaking of Ren, she rarely emerged from her spirit seal on his left arm. "Est, don't be angry. I'll treat you to this." Roy patted her head and offered her a strawberry ice cream sundae. Fine, I forgive you," Est said, accepting the ice cream after a moment of hesitation. "Roy-sama, what happened?" Velsaria and Lux emerged from the airship with their teams. Not only them, but almost all the girls on the airship came out to see what had caused the commotion. "It's nothing. Everything's fine now. Go back and rest. We'll be arriving at the sanctuary soon," Roy reassured them with a wave of his hand. The other teams, learning about the attack, looked at Roy with curiosity. After the incident with the destroyer spirit, several hours passed. The Befall-class airship was approaching the sanctuary of the Wind Elemental Lord. "Look, we can see the island," Rinslet exclaimed excitedly, pointing towards the island ahead. Her unreserved joy was quite adorable. "Keep your voice down." "It's embarrassing," Claire chided, elbowing her lightly. "Oh, are you jealous that I'm getting all the attention?" Rinslet retorted, flipping her hair. Roy ignored their bickering and looked at the island with awe. "So that's the sanctuary." A massive floating island, surrounded by towering mountains, emerged from the thick clouds. Ragno YS, one of the most important sanctuaries in the Astral Zero. Roy hadn't seen such a magnificent island during his time here thousands of years ago. It must have been built in the intervening years. The airship slowly entered the harbor of the floating island. It was past noon, a bit later than scheduled. They disembarked and boarded carriages prepared by the Divine Ritual Institute. The carriages headed towards the castle where the opening ceremony would be held. Claire pointed out the various sites along the way. This floating island, Ragno YS, is one of the 5 sanctuaries in the Astral Zero. It's the territory of the Wind Elemental Lord. According to records, the Blade Dance was held here 74 years ago. There was no fixed rule for choosing the location of the Blade Dance. It was decided by the decrees issued to the elemental princesses. And that castle in the center of the island is a relic from the Age of Myths, Claire continued. This is a rare opportunity. Normally, only the princess shrine maidens from the Divine Ritual Institute are allowed to enter. Fianna, have you been there before? Fianna, a former princess shrine maiden candidate, nodded. Yes, but I was mostly at the Temple of the Fire Elemental Lord, so I've only been there once. The main temple of the Elemental Lords? I'm getting nervous, Ellis mumbled. Ha, Ellis, don't worry. It's just the Elemental Lords, Roy chuckled. The girls stared at him in surprise. How dare he speak so casually about the Elemental Lords? If others heard him, he would be labeled a heretic. Roy, you shouldn't say such things. If others hear you. Claire warned, worried. Don't worry. I haven't told you my true identity yet. Today, I'll reveal one of my identities. The girls looked at him curiously. I'm actually the Mao who ruled the astral zero thousands of years ago, Roy declared with a mysterious smile. Mao. The girls exchanged confused glances. They had never heard of that title. Of course, it was understandable. After all, it had happened thousands of years ago. The carriage traveled along the path. There was no one else around. They soon arrived at a massive stone gate leading to the castle. The castle stood on a hilltop, its appearance both magnificent and solemn. It was surrounded by a lush forest and a large lake. The other teams seemed to have arrived already. Several carriages were parked outside. Elementalists who will perform the Blade Dance for the Elemental Lords, we welcome your arrival, a group of girls in beautiful shrine maiden attire greeted them. They're apprentice shrine maidens from the Divine Ritual Institute. You could say they're my juniors, Fianna explained to Roy. We will be attending to your needs during your stay here, the leader of the shrine maidens said, bowing respectfully. As she bowed, her robe shifted slightly, revealing a glimpse of her cleavage. Roy couldn't help but notice. Although it was a sacred garment designed for rituals, it was quite alluring. I wonder how Claire and the others would look in those outfits. Roy mused. Roy, what are you looking at? Claire demanded, her voice laced with jealousy. I was just thinking. You might look good in those outfits. What? Claire blushed furiously. Chapter 122, A Dip in the Lake and a Dance with Rinslet. What are you talking about? But if Roy wants to see, it's not impossible. Claire stammered, her face beet red. Roy, so you like that kind of outfit? Rinslet giggled. What have you done to the sacred shrine maiden attire? I wonder if I still have my shrine maiden outfit from the Divine Ritual Institute. The three girls whispered among themselves, their faces flushed. They passed through the castle gate and entered the grand hall. The high ceiling was adorned with beautiful arches, and a carpeted hallway lined with stone pillars stretched out before them. Instead of torches or spirit crystals, small light spirits floated in the air, providing illumination. Although this was a relic from the Age of Myths, after thousands of years of renovations, little remained of its original appearance. The only things that hinted at its ancient origins were the carvings on the stone pillars. The walls of the hallway were decorated with colorful murals depicting legendary elemental princesses and past winners of the Blade Dance. They followed the shrine maiden through the vast castle, finally arriving at their room. This is the room for the Ordesia Empire's representatives, Team Scarlet. Please don't hesitate to ask if you need anything, the shrine maiden said. Wait, is Roy going to stay in the same room as us? Rinslet asked, blushing. Oh, of course not. What are you thinking? Claire exclaimed, her face also turning red. That's right. It's impossible for us to share a room with a man, Ellis added with a cough. Well, that's true, but if there aren't enough rooms, it can't be helped, right? Fianna and Rinslet exchanged anxious glances. Roy chuckled at their flustered reactions. "We have separate rooms prepared for men," the Shrine Maiden explained, looking at them with a puzzled expression. I knew that. Of course. Yes, that's very thoughtful of you." The girls nodded vigorously, completely forgetting their earlier embarrassment. "It's a shame," Carol giggled. "What's a shame, Carol?" Roy asked with a smile. "I think the young ladies will be disappointed," Carol whispered in his ear. Roy understood what she meant. But it wasn't entirely impossible. "Excuse me, Shrine Maiden," Roy called out. If he remembered correctly, the room they had assigned him was an abandoned storage room. He didn't want to stay in such a place. And he needed to teleport Rias and the others here. He needed more rooms. "Is there something else you need?" the Shrine Maiden asked. "Please arrange more rooms for us," Roy requested, a glint in his eyes. The Shrine Maiden was about to refuse his unreasonable request when her expression suddenly changed. Her initially indifferent demeanor shifted to one of respect. "Roy-sama, we can arrange as many rooms as you need." Claire and the others were shocked by her sudden change in attitude. Normally, she wouldn't agree to such a request. Roy smirked but didn't explain. He had simply used his mind control magic. Roy then used his teleportation magic to return to Orishia Spirit Academy and bring the other girls to the sanctuary. Wow! So this is the sanctuary. The architecture is so different. It seems we have a lot to explore. Are we going shopping? Count me in. The girls chattered excitedly as they arrived. "All right, everyone, let's get settled in first," Roy announced. "By the way, we're going to participate in the cleansing ritual later. Do you want to join us?" Claire asked Rias and the others. "Cleansing ritual?" The girls exchanged confused glances. "It's a ritual where we cleanse our bodies with water," Fianna explained. "So basically, it's just taking a bath, right?" Mine guessed. "That's the gist of it." "Roy, do you want to join us?" Claire asked, blushing. "Of course I'm going. Why wouldn't I be allowed?" Roy replied with a raised eyebrow. "Well." Claire was speechless. After Siko and the others finished unpacking and arranging their rooms, they all headed towards the location of the cleansing ritual, including Belsaria and Lux's teams. The warm sunlight filtered through the leaves of the lush forest. Colorful birds flew through the air. The branches of the trees were laden with ripe fruits. They arrived at a large lake beside the castle. Many spirits were dancing and playing around the lake, highlighting its sacred nature. It was the perfect place for the Shrine Maidens to perform their cleansing ritual. "Are Claire and the others not here yet?" Roy wondered, looking around. The girls were taking their time changing into their swimsuits. Roy, however, was already ready. He was shirtless, wearing only a pair of swim trunks. His silver hair fluttered in the wind, and his honored handsome face could make even the gods jealous. Bored, Roy lay down on a beach chair and closed his eyes. "Roy, sorry to keep you waiting." Roy opened his eyes and saw Fianna standing before him, wearing a rather revealing swimsuit. "Oh, it's Fianna. Hee, how do I look in this swimsuit?" Fianna asked with a giggle, pulling Roy to his feet. "You look great," Roy replied with a thumbs up. "Fianna, you're so sly." Claire and the other girls, who had finally arrived in their swimsuits, called out from a distance. Claire was wearing a simple, bright red swimsuit with no frills or decorations, which only accentuated her natural beauty. She looked absolutely adorable. The girls were a sight to behold, each in their own unique swimsuit, a beautiful display of diverse styles and personalities. This is truly paradise, Roy thought with a grin. Deep beneath the floating island of Ragnawayas, in a vast cavern that even the Shrine Maidens of the Divine Ritual Institute were forbidden to enter, two figures walked through the darkness. One was Lily Flame, an orphan from the instructional school. She followed behind her master, reading from a report. After the battle, the destroyer spirit was rendered useless by Nir Allenstarl. The military officials have lodged a strong protest against us. Let them complain. Those incompetent fools only care about their own safety, the girl leading the way replied dismissively. She had long, flowing red hair and wore a black coat and a crimson mask with a demonic pattern. Lily wasn't surprised by her master's response. To her, the nation with whom she was allied was merely a tool to achieve her goals. But, Rin-sama, what about the deployment of the military spirits? Lily asked. The girl, known as Run, didn't answer immediately. Rubia Elstian? The only sounds in the cavern were their footsteps and the clinking of the spirit crystals they carried for illumination. The crystals cast an eerie glow on the strange carvings on the cavern walls. Lily was curious. How had her master discovered this hidden place, forbidden even to the shrine maidens? Tell Muir to remain still for now. I'll meet with her tonight, Rin finally replied. You're attending the ball? Lily asked in surprise. As the winner of the previous tournament, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to skip it, would it? But you haven't prepared your attire. Lily said cautiously. I still have my dress from the last tournament, although I left most of my clothes with my sister. You have a sister? Ren didn't answer. Lily, worried about displeasing her master, quickly changed the subject. But are you sure that man is the Mao we're looking for? He has claimed to be the Mao. We'll find out tonight, Ren replied, a strange glint in her eyes. As evening approached, the opening ceremony of the blade dance commenced in the castle that served as the lodging for the participants. The grand hall was filled with guests, nobles, and elementalists from various countries, their conversations and laughter filling the air. Elegant music played softly in the background. The hall was decorated with chandeliers adorned with countless spirit crystals. A long table in the center was laden with luxurious dishes and a variety of fruits. Roy entered the hall with his entourage, immediately drawing everyone's attention. The girls, dressed in beautiful gowns, were a sight to behold, but Roy, in his elegant suit, was the center of attention. That's the only male elementalist on the continent. The girls with him are all so beautiful. As expected of the Night Demon King. He has so many girls with him. Are those all his slaves? How terrifying. The Night Demon King. I'd love to have a taste of him. The nobles gossiped among themselves, some of the young ladies staring at Roy with undisguised desire. Even the girls participating in the blade dance couldn't help but steal glances at him. These girls were all elite elementalists selected from various countries. And they were all beautiful. They were all around the same age as Roy and his group. This was because, according to the decree of the Elemental Lords, one of the requirements for participating in the blade dance was being a princess shrine maiden under the age of 20. This rule applied not only to the blade dance but also to most important spirit rituals. Roy found a seat on a sofa, surrounded by his girls. Many young noblemen and beautiful women tried to approach him, but the girls quickly shooed them away. He was supposed to be their protector, but now, he was the one being protected. Est, what would you like to eat? Roy asked the sword spirit, who was holding a plate. Roy, I want some fish, Est replied. Such a good girl, not picky at all. Unlike those other girls, Roy chuckled, petting Est's head. Est, dressed in a pure white dress, looked like an adorable snow elf. Est is so cute, Roy said as he stroked her hair. Est's ears twitched. Roy, say that again. Please say it again. Est looked at him with her mesmerizing eyes. Est is so cute, Roy repeated, indulging her request. Roy, you're biased. I want praise too. Run, who rarely emerged from her spirit seal, suddenly appeared, pouting. Rin is also very cute, Roy said, patting her head. Say it again. Ren whined. Ren is very, very cute. Roy suddenly realized that many eyes were on him. He turned and saw Rias and the other girls staring at him. They all want praise now? Roy felt a cold sweat. Fortunately, the girls didn't make any demands. Roy found this kind of social gathering rather boring. If not for the chance to see Rubia, he wouldn't have come. Just as he was getting restless, Rinslet approached him. Roy," she stammered. Rinslet was wearing a stunning ocean blue dress that accentuated her beauty. Her golden hair was styled in an elegant updo, making her look like an ice queen. Her cheeks were flushed, and her rosy lips were slightly parted. Well, this is a rare opportunity, so. She cleared her throat several times. Then, she finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Would you like to dance with me?" The other girls groaned in frustration. They hadn't even thought about asking him to dance. Rinslet had beaten them to it. "Of course. It would be my honor to dance with you, Rinslet," Roy replied, taking her gloved hand with a gentlemanly bow. It's Roy's hand." Rinslet blushed, her voice barely audible. Roy led her to the dance floor. He could feel her nervousness. "Relax," he whispered in her ear, his arm gently encircling her waist. Rinslet's body went limp, her legs almost giving way. If Roy hadn't been holding her, she would have collapsed. Chapter 123, Claire's sister Rubia Elstian offer? Roy was then kept busy, as all the girls wanted to dance with him. After dancing with Akame, he felt a tingling in his feet. It seemed Akame had no talent for dancing and had stepped on his toes throughout the entire song. Roy couldn't help but chuckle. After dancing with all the girls, Fianna approached him. "Roy," she whispered in his ear, her expression serious. "What is it?" "She's here." Roy turned towards the entrance of the hall. A commotion erupted near the entrance, far greater than any before. The most anticipated figure of this blade dance had arrived. She strode into the hall with a confident air, her footsteps echoing through the room. She was dressed in a black evening gown, like a queen of the night. Her face was hidden behind a crimson mask. This was the strongest blade dancer, the Crimson Princess. Her presence was overwhelming, radiating an aura of power that made those around her feel as if they would be incinerated if they got too close. The chatter in the hall ceased, replaced by an almost deafening silence. Everyone watched her with bated breath. Unlike with Claire earlier, no one dared to approach her. The music stopped. The Crimson Princess stopped in the middle of the hall, then walked towards Roy and the others. "She's quite a beauty," Roy commented, taking a sip of his wine and observing the girl with admiration. "You're Roy, aren't you?" the girl asked, her voice as gentle as a spring breeze. It was Rubia, her voice masked by the crimson mask. "Yes," Roy replied with a smile, setting down his glass. "Pleased to meet you." "I am Ren," Rubia said, extending her hand. Roy took her hand and chuckled. "Pleased to meet you too." "Roy, may I have this dance?" Ron suddenly asked. "Of course." Roy didn't release her hand and led her to the dance floor. The band began playing a waltz. The two danced gracefully in the center of the hall, the focus of everyone's attention. Their dance was as passionate and fiery as the flames Rubia wielded. It resembled the formal ritual dances performed by shrine maidens during festivals. Although Roy had never learned this dance before, he effortlessly matched her every step. "You can keep up with me?" As expected of the only male elementalist on the continent, Rubia commented through her mask, impressed. She changed the steps, and Roy reacted instantly, pulling her closer. They swayed like flames, their movements perfectly synchronized with the music. Their dance was no longer a simple ballroom waltz. It was a passionate and fiery duel. When the music ended, Rubia led Roy to a secluded balcony. She looked at him with her ruby eyes. "So, why did you bring me here, Ransan?" Roy asked, intrigued. The only male elementalist on the continent, who suddenly appeared at Arishia Spirit Academy a few months ago and claimed to be the Mao who ruled the Astral Zero. "Am I correct?" Rubia asked, her gaze unwavering. "Oh? You've done your research." "Yes, that's true," Roy admitted with a shrug. There was no need to hide it. Rubia nodded, then continued, "Thousands of years ago, a war broke out between the elemental lords. A man who called himself a Mao defeated the Dark Elemental Lord and then the alliance of the 5 other Elemental Lords, ultimately ruling the Astral Zero. Was that truly you? Yes, it was, Roy confirmed casually. He didn't deny it. There was no point. Rubia's eyes widened in surprise, but she quickly regained her composure. She wouldn't believe him based on his words alone. Whether you're truly the Mao or not, allow me to test you. Rubia placed her hand on Roy's chest. Freezing flames, she declared. Pale blue flames erupted from her hand. These were the flames that freeze flames, defying the laws of nature. Anything they touched would be frozen solid. However, the flames danced harmlessly on Roy's chest, having no effect. Roy looked at her with a knowing smile. Finished with your test? Seeing that her strongest flames couldn't harm him, Rubia was convinced that he was indeed the Mao. She was confident that no one could withstand her flames. She knelt before him. Greetings, Mao-sama. Please forgive my insolence. I can forgive you, but... But what? Rubia looked up cautiously. There must be a punishment. Roy lifted her chin, removed her mask, and kissed her. This was the price for challenging a Mao. Rubia's eyes widened in shock. She hadn't expected to lose her first kiss upon their first meeting. After a while, Roy released her. So, what is it that you want from me? He asked. Mao-sama, I need your power, Rubia said, her voice slightly breathless. Oh? The Elemental Lords have been corrupted by the otherworld darkness. If this continues, they will bring disaster upon the world. I implore you, Mao-sama, to eliminate the Elemental Lords and create a world without spirits. Rubia declared, her eyes filled with determination. 3 years ago, Rubia had betrayed the Fire Elemental Lord after discovering his corruption and change in personality. And in the years since, she had created the Inferno, hoping to instigate a war to achieve her goal. But she knew that defeating the Elemental Lords through war was nearly impossible. That's why she had approached Roy upon hearing rumors of the Mao's return. I see, and what price are you willing to pay? Roy asked, stroking his chin. As a devil, he didn't do anything for free. Rubia hadn't expected him to ask for compensation. She couldn't think of anything valuable enough. Then, she remembered the many girls around Roy, and her eyes lit up. And the Mao had just kissed her. A confident smile spread across her face. If you grant my wish, Mao-sama, then. I'm willing to offer myself to you, she declared, her cheeks flushing slightly. So straightforward? Roy was surprised by her boldness. Seeing his silence, Rubia became anxious. If that's not enough, Mao-sama, I can also offer you my sister, Claire. Claire is already mine, Roy commented casually. Rubia recalled seeing Claire sitting intimately with Roy earlier. Then, I have 2 subordinates, Noor and Lily. They're beautiful girls too, she offered. Ahem, don't make me sound like some kind of pervert, Roy chided, trying to maintain a serious expression. Rubia's lips twitched. Who was the one who stole my first kiss the moment we met, she thought. If that's not a pervert, then what is? So, does this mean you agree, Mao-sama? She asked, feigning excitement. If the Elemental Lords are truly as you say, then eliminating them is the right thing to do, Roy replied with a nod. This was a simple task. He just had to have Ren-Ashdal purge the otherworld darkness from the Elemental Lords. Thank you, Mao-sama. Rubia expressed her gratitude. So, what's the plan? Just participate in the blade dance as usual. I'll take care of the Elemental Lords, Roy instructed. Yes, Mao-sama. After confirming their plan, Rubia left. Roy returned to the banquet hall. What did that girl want? Rias asked curiously. She just asked me for a favor, Roy replied with a smile. The strongest blade dancer personally came to ask Roy for a favor? That's amazing. Claire exclaimed, her eyes filled with admiration. Roy glanced at her, amused. He wondered what her reaction would be if she knew that girl was her sister. Having met Rubia, there was no need for him to stay at the banquet any longer. He left with the girls. The main events of the blade dance were scheduled for 2 days later, so they had one more day to relax. The next morning, Claire cleared her throat and suggested, "Roy, let's go out for a walk." Sure, Roy agreed. It was the last day of rest before the main tournament. It was only fitting to spend some time with the girls. The girls cheered, excited to explore the sanctuary. Then it's decided. Let's get ready to go. I've been wanting to explore this place. Yes, staying indoors all the time isn't good. Then everyone, get ready. We'll depart soon. They changed their clothes and took a carriage to the port. Simple wooden buildings lined the streets, creating a lively atmosphere like a festival. The various countries had also contributed funds to set up food stalls and entertainment booths for the spectators of the blade dance. Since this was the Astral Zero, where humans couldn't live, this bustling street would only exist for a few days. It was a sight unique to the blade dance. The sky is so clear. Saya exclaimed, taking a deep breath of fresh air. Well, we are above the clouds, Claire replied, stretching like a cat as she chatted with Saya and mine. The three girls with pink pigtails, despite their frequent bickering, were actually good friends. The scenery here is quite lovely, Rias commented with a smile, her arm linked with Roy's. A gentle breeze blew, causing her crimson hair to sway. Taking advantage of her status as his fiancée, Rias had claimed the spot on Roy's left side. On his right was Renash Doll. After all, she was the strongest among them, even surpassing Roy in power. Their group attracted a lot of attention as they walked through the streets. But they were used to it by now. Small airships flew between the clouds, carrying spectators to the floating island of Ragnawyas. With the main tournament about to begin, nobles from various countries had gathered here. This is incredible. Only on a floating island can you see such a view. Alice and Rinslid marveled at the scenery. The streets were lined with various shops and stalls. Although the buildings were temporary structures, the craftsmen and cooks working inside were all highly skilled individuals recruited from different countries. The blade dance was an opportunity for nations to showcase their prestige, so they spared no expense. As they reached the center of the shopping district, they encountered a group of tourists disembarking from an airship. The crowd here is insane. There are so many people. I'm starting to feel dizzy. Alice and Rinslid looked around anxiously. It seemed the sheltered noble ladies weren't used to crowds. And unlike in the Academy City, there were many men here. Although they were elite elementalists, they felt like innocent young girls in this unfamiliar environment, clinging to Roy for safety. Even Claire stuck close to him. The sight of their group attracted whispers and curious glances from the passers-by. Look at that boy surrounded by so many girls. Is that the rumored male elementalist? What a scumbag, preying on those innocent girls. But look at their expressions, they don't seem to mind. They must be under some kind of spell. Roy frowned, releasing a bit of his demonic aura. The gossiping onlookers felt an immense pressure and collapsed to their knees, their faces pale with fear. They couldn't get up until Roy and his group were gone. When they finally looked up, their eyes were filled with terror. What happened here? The commotion quickly attracted the attention of the shrine maidens who were maintaining order. Chapter 124, Exploring La Patisserie and Encountering Leonora in the Library. Hey, there are a lot of people here. Should we find a quieter place to rest? Roy suggested. Yes, that's a good idea, Rias and the others agreed. They looked around for a suitable cafe. Roy, look! There's a La Patisserie shop. Rinslid exclaimed, pointing to a charming cafe across the street. What? The famous La Patisserie? I've always wanted to try their cakes. If I remember correctly, it's a very popular shop in the capital. I am interested too. Even Claire and Ellis knew about it. It seemed this temporary shop was quite renowned. Then let's go there. Agreed. Sure. Okay. They all headed towards the cafe. La pâtisserie was packed. They even had to wait for a table. But after Roy used a bit of magic, the staff immediately led them to a private room. Roy observed the cafe's interior as they walked. The exposed wooden beams on the ceiling created a warm and inviting atmosphere. "I'll have the peach pie, peach sorbet, and the peach mousse," Claire declared, her finger tracing the menu excitedly. "Why are you ordering so many peach desserts? Didn't you have some this morning?" Rinslet questioned. Mind your own business. I like peaches," Claire retorted. "This raspberry puff looks delicious too." "Why yes, that looks good as well." "Ooh, this one has ice cream on top of a hot apple pie. Let's order that one too and share it." "Roy, what do you want?" "I'll have the strawberry pie." The girls happily chose their favorite desserts. Seeing their joyful expressions filled Roy with warmth. After leaving the cafe, they continued exploring the port. "Roy, can we go to that shop?" Rinslet asked, pointing to a clothing store that specialized in noble attire. "Sure." Roy nodded. "Rinslet, are you buying clothes now?" The main tournament of the Blade Dance was starting tomorrow. There wouldn't be any opportunities to wear anything other than their academy uniforms. "Not for me. I'm buying gifts for Carol and my little sister," Rinslet explained. "Your sister?" Roy didn't recall her having a sister. "Rinslet Neeson has a little sister?" Alice and the others also looked at her curiously. "Yes, she came to watch me compete," Rinslet replied with a smile. Carol wasn't with them because she was at the port, waiting to welcome Rinslet's younger sister. "So Rinslet has a little sister. I bet she's just as beautiful and charming as you," Roy commented. "Roy, what are you saying?" Rinslet blushed. "My sister is very beautiful too." Ellis chimed in for some reason. "Well, Velsaria is indeed a beauty," Roy agreed. "Are you comparing sisters now?" Fianna grumbled. The girls blushed. "What do you mean, comparing sisters?" "Idiot. You impure shrine maiden. Even if you're jealous, there's nothing you can do about it. You don't even have a sister." They entered the store, surprised by its spacious interior. Besides fashionable clothing, they even had swimsuits. "I'll go choose something for my sister," Rinslet declared, heading deeper into the store. "Roy, wait for me here." "I'll try some clothes on and come back," Claire said, her cheeks reddening. "Try them on?" Roy looked at her curiously. I want you to help me choose," Claire explained, flustered. "Oh, I understand. Go ahead." "So she wants a fashion show, huh?" Roy thought with amusement. "Roy, please help us choose our clothes too," Rias and Aquino chimed in with playful smiles. "No problem. Go ahead." The girls then took turns trying on various outfits, parading before him like models on a runway. With their natural beauty, they looked stunning in everything they wore. After their shopping spree, they continued exploring the port and came across the ancient library. It was a massive, fortress-like building on a hill. Although not as large as Aricia Spirit Academy's renowned sealed library, it housed a vast collection of ancient texts and legendary grimoires. At Claire's suggestion, they entered the library. Countless bookshelves, reaching the high ceiling, filled the interior. "This library is huge. It's so impressive." "Unfortunately, I'm not good at reading." "Me neither. Books give me a headache." Sheil, being airhead, found books tedious, as did Leon. But some of the girls, like Saya and Siko, enjoyed reading. Roy was also a bit interested in the books. He headed towards the section with historical records and legends from across the continent. As he walked, he overheard the whispers of the shrine maidens from the Divine Ritual Institute. "Look, it's the male elementalist. Is that the rumored king of winning? Don't look into his eyes. You'll be corrupted. I heard that if the night demon king takes a liking to you, you'll get pregnant." How terrifying. Why do even the shrine maidens know about these rumors? Roy wondered with a sigh. But he decided to let it slide, considering their cuteness. He closed a book he had been browsing. It was a rather dull travelogue of some adventurer's journey across the continent. As he returned the book to its shelf. "Are you Roy?" a voice suddenly asked. Roy turned around. "Yo, Leonora," he greeted her with a smile. "Don't call me so casually," the girl retorted, blushing. Roy chuckled and observed her. She had beautiful black hair that reached her shoulders, a beret with a dragon emblem, and a sharp gaze that pierced through her glasses. This was Leonora Lancaster, the representative of the Dracunia Academy and the leader of the Knights of the Dragon Emperor. She was considered one of the favorites to win the blade dance. "What brings you here, Leonora?" Roy asked. "That's a stupid question. I'm gathering information on the other teams, of course," Leonora replied with a sneer, as if he were an idiot. Well. Roy was speechless. This girl had the guts to speak to him like that? Punishment is necessary. Gathering information, huh? Have you gathered any on me? Roy asked, stepping closer. Leonora, startled, backed away until she was pressed against a bookshelf. "And no, I haven't found any information on you," she stammered. She had witnessed Roy's power firsthand. She knew she was no match for him. Although this ancient library held a vast amount of information, it wouldn't have anything on Roy. "I don't recall you wearing glasses before," Roy commented, leaning closer and trapping her between his arm and the bookshelf. Leonora, with her glasses, looked even cuter. As expected of the infamous Night Demon King. "Even such a small detail doesn't escape your notice," she said, trying to maintain her composure despite her pounding heart. Roy narrowed his eyes, his gaze sweeping over her. I only wear them when I'm reading. My eyesight isn't very good. I use spirit magic to enhance my vision during combat," Leonora explained, a bit intimidated by his intense gaze. "They suit you. You look cute," Roy commented casually. Leonora, usually a shy and easily flustered girl, blushed crimson. What are you talking about? You pervert with a glasses fetish," she exclaimed. Roy was speechless. He gently removed her glasses. Why did you take them off?" Leonora asked, her eyes wide and innocent. "Because they'll get in the way of what I'm about to do," Roy replied with a smirk, placing her glasses on his collar. Leonora blushed even harder, her thoughts unknown. And for a moment, Roy thought her eyes changed color. Then, "I'll accept your offer," she suddenly declared, throwing her arms around his neck and kissing him. Eh? Roy was stunned. What was going on? She had been so shy just a moment ago, and now she was suddenly so bold? Then, he remembered. Leonora had dragon blood. When her dragon blood awakened, she would act impulsively and boldly towards the opposite sex. That explained her sudden change in behavior. Right there, in a corner of the library, Leonora gave Roy her first kiss. How could you?" She mumbled, her face burning as she came to her senses. "You were the one who kissed me," Roy replied innocently, shrugging. "Mum." Leonora quickly pulled away. "I apologize. It seems my dragon blood awakened for a moment," she explained. "It's all right," Roy chuckled. Leonora bit her lip and ran away. Roy watched her retreating figure with a smile. "She's quite cute," he murmured. Roy left the corner. "Claire, what are you four reading?" he asked, seeing Claire, Rinslet, Fianna, and Alice huddled together, seemingly engrossed in a book. The four girls jumped, their faces turning red as they saw him approach. We weren't reading anything. Claire found it. Yes. And we weren't peeking at any forbidden magic books. That's right. Roy sighed at their unconvincing denials. What kind of book were they reading, he wondered. By the time they left the library, the sun was setting. On the carriage ride back, Claire and the others whispered among themselves excitedly. It's true. If it's Shizukane-san, she should be able to handle it. No way. How could anyone do that? Handle what? What are you talking about? Roy asked, looking at them curiously. Or could it be that you're so big that even Shizukane-san can't handle you? Rinslet asked, her eyes wide with surprise. What? Roy was confused. Ahem, we were talking about eating ice cream, Ellis explained with a cough. Chapter 125, Family Ties and the Blade Dance begins. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Roy and the girls returned to the castle. Just like the previous night, a ball was being held in the main hall. However, this one wasn't related to the blade dance. It was simply a social event for the nobles. Hardly any elementalists were present. Those participating in the main tournament tomorrow weren't in the mood for parties. Just as Roy returned to his room, he heard the voices of young girls coming from the hallway. Your hair is so beautiful, Wani-sama. Morel, don't pull my hair. That was Rinslet's voice. What's going on? Roy opened his door and stepped into the hallway. He saw a little girl playing with Rinslet's hair. Rinslet, what are you doing? Ah. Roy? Rinslet turned around in surprise. Roy? The little girl also looked at him. She had the same beautiful blonde hair as Rinslet and wore a white dress that complemented her emerald eyes. She was around 7 or 8 years old, and although still young, she was adorable and bore a striking resemblance to Rinslet. Wow! It's Roy Onii-chan. I finally met you. The girl ran towards Roy and hugged him tightly. What's going on? Roy was surprised by the sudden hug. Morel, that's not proper. A lady of the Lorenfrost family shouldn't behave like that. Rinslet scolded her. It's okay. Roy Onii-chan will be my brother-in-law someday, right? Roy chuckled. She was quite a character. Morel? What are you saying? But you always write in your letters. Rinslet quickly covered her sister's mouth. Is this the little sister you mentioned, Rinslet? She's adorable, Roy said with a smile, patting the girl's head. Yes, I'm Morel Lorenfrost, the third daughter of the Lorenfrost family. Morel introduced herself with a curtsy. Her lively emerald eyes sparkled with mischief. She would surely grow up to be a beautiful young lady like Rinslet. I'm Roy, Rinslet's teammate. I know. You're Wani-chan's boyfriend, right? Morel teased. And no. That's not true. How could he be my boyfriend? Rinslet stammered, her face as red as a tomato. Oh, Wani-chan is shy. How cute. Stop teasing me. Rinslet lightly swatted Morel's back. Roy was amused by their interaction. Rinslet, the usually proud and stubborn older sister, was completely flustered in front of her little sister. He gently patted Morel's head. Morel let out a happy sigh. Although I am your sister's boyfriend, you shouldn't tease her so much, Roy said gently. Okay, Roy Onii-chan, I understand, Morel replied with a nod. She seemed to be a straightforward and kind child, just like her sister. Rinslet blushed but didn't deny his words. As expected of Roy-san. Even our third young lady has been captivated by your charm, Carol suddenly appeared, giggling. Carol? When did you get here? Rinslet exclaimed, surprised. But then, she seemed to realize something and turned to Roy with a flustered expression. Roy, no! I won't allow you to have a threesome with my sisters. Rinslet, what are you thinking? Roy asked, bewildered by her sudden outburst. I think, if it's with Wani-chan, even if I'm deflowered, it's okay. What is she saying? Roy thought, speechless. Carol cleared her throat and grabbed Morel's collar. Morel-sama, Lady Rinslet and the others have important matters to attend to. Let's go back to our room. But I want to play with Wani-chan and Roy Onii-chan. Seeing Morel's stubborn refusal, Carol whispered in her ear, "Be a good girl. Don't disturb their private time." "Oh, that's right. I understand, Carol." Morel suddenly stopped protesting and grabbed Rinslet's arm. "One each on, I'll cheer for you tomorrow." "You have to save Judy and Ethan," she said with a serious expression. Rinslet nodded, her gaze filled with determination. "I will." Morel let go of her sister's arm and turned to Roy with a bright smile. "Roy Oniichan, you have to visit our Laurenfrost territory after the blade dance." "Of course, I promise," Roy assured her. "I'm so glad you'll be my brother-in-law," Morel declared happily, then skipped away with Carol. "That little sister of mine, she's quite a handful," Rinslet sighed. "You're a good sister, Rinslet," Roy said with a smile. "Well, of course. I'm the eldest, after all," Rinslet replied, blushing slightly. Roy was curious about the name Morel had mentioned. "By the way, who's Judia?" he asked. Rinslet's expression turned somber. "Sorry, did I ask something I shouldn't have?" "No, not at all," Rinslet shook her head. "Judia is also my sister, the second daughter of the Laurenfrost family." Roy finally understood. The anime had only covered the first part of the story, so he wasn't familiar with the later events. "What happened to her?" "She's currently in a deep sleep at the Laurenfrost castle," Rinslet replied, her voice filled with sadness as she explained the situation. Judia Laurenfrost, the second daughter of the Laurenfrost family, was once a promising princess shrine maiden candidate. But a few years ago, during a ritual to appease the Wind Elemental Lord, she made a mistake. The enraged Elemental Lord imprisoned her within a seal. Count Laurenfrost had hired many renowned elementalists to try and break the seal. But even with the help of powerful spirits, they couldn't break it. Judia remained trapped, her body frozen in time. A seal created by the Wind Elemental Lord? Roy frowned, his anger rising. "Don't worry, Rinslet. I'll save Judia after the blade dance," he promised. "Really?" Rinslet looked at him with hope in her eyes. "Of course. I won't let you down." Roy placed a hand on her shoulder, his gaze sincere. Rinslet's eyes filled with tears as she threw her arms around him. She had initially planned to win the blade dance and use the reward, the blessing of the Elemental Lords, to plead with the Wind Elemental Lord to release Judia. But she trusted Roy more than the Elemental Lords. To her, Roy was capable of anything. "Thank you, Roy," she whispered, her cheeks flushed. Roy found her genuine smile incredibly cute. She usually had such a stubborn and competitive demeanor. "Well then, Roy. I'll go back to my room and prepare for tomorrow," Rinslet said, then hurried away. The next day, the blade dance officially began. The grand hall was filled with excitement and anticipation. A massive crowd of spectators from various countries had gathered. There were nobles, influential figures, and shrine maidens from different elemental spirit contractor training institutions. Even some students from Orishia Spirit Academy were among the crowd. The participating teams were gathered on the altar in the center of the hall. Since the audience consisted mostly of nobles and dignitaries, there were no jeers or boos. Some of the more famous elementalists even had their own fan clubs. Whenever a team appeared, the hall would erupt in cheers and screams from their supporters. "Go, Roy! Go, my lady! Go, Roy! Wane-sama, I'll be waiting for your triumphant return. May glory be with the Laurenfrost." Carol and Morel, waving flags with the Laurenfrost family crest, were at the forefront of the crowd, cheering for their sister and Roy. Rias and the other girls were also there to support them. "Those two, they're so embarrassing," Rinslet grumbled, hiding behind Roy with a blush. "I think it's cute," Roy chuckled. "Roy, be careful, it seems many people are watching you," Ellis warned, noticing the numerous gazes directed at them. "Yes, I know." Roy scanned the crowd and indeed felt many eyes on him. Perhaps they saw him as a threat, or maybe his actions on the airship had been reported. Either way, those staring at them were likely not friendly. All 23 teams, except for Rubia's team, the Inferno, were now assembled in the hall. These teams were all composed of elite elementalists carefully selected from their respective countries. Among them, the Dracunia Dragon Knights, led by Leonora, exuded the most formidable aura. They were all top-class elementalists, disciplined and focused, like a well-trained army. Roy and Leonora exchanged glances. Leonora blushed, clearly still embarrassed about their encounter in the library. She might even target their team during the tournament. The Dracunia Dragon Knights are well-trained. Even those besides Leonora are formidable, Ellis commented, observing their opponents. Yes, if we don't consider the Inferno, the Dragon Knights are definitely one of the favorites to win. But we have to be wary of other teams as well, Claire added. First, there are the other teams representing our academy, Silent Fortress and Lux, she continued. Just dealing with my sister alone will be tough, Ellis said with a worried frown. Don't worry, they won't target us first, Roy reassured her with a smile. That's true. The girls nodded in agreement. This was a competition between nations. It wouldn't be wise to target a team from the same country. And with Roy on their team, Velsaria wouldn't be foolish enough to attack them directly. Claire then noticed a group dressed in exotic attire. They were from the Quina Empire, a powerful nation in the east. Their eastern culture was vastly different from the western countries, like the Ordesia Empire. That's the Quina Empire's Four Gods team, known for their teamwork and powerful spirits, Claire explained. That girl with white hair and a chipa is their ace, Xiaofu. She wields the sacred beast, White Tiger. 4 gods? But there are 5 of them, Rinslet pointed out. That girl at the front must be their strategist, Roy replied, referring to the petite girl standing before Xiaofu. Yes, her name is Linfa. She's the commander of the 4 gods. Wow, she's so small. She looks about the same age as Morel, Rinslet commented in surprise. Claire then turned her attention to another team dressed in white robes. They're the Holy Spirit Knights from the Holy Kingdom of Lugia. Their leader is Luminaris Saint Lasht, one of the top 4 in the previous tournament. They're a strong opponent. Finally, there's the Rupture Division from the Principality of Rossvale. Their leader, Milla Bassett, is the youngest participant this year, only 13 years old. But she's incredibly powerful. Rossvale gained independence from Lugia a few decades ago. It's a relatively new nation. Although they don't have a long history, their elementalists are said to be top class. Well, those are the main teams to watch out for. Chapter 126, the teams gather and the blade dance commences. Who are those people? Roy asked, noticing a group of girls glaring at them. Those girls are royal guards, Claire explained. Why are they glaring at us? Well, I think they're the ones we rejected at the ball, Claire said sheepishly. I see. Roy understood. Those must be the noblemen whose advances they had rebuffed at the ball, and now they were using their country's representatives to get back at them. They're probably here to take revenge on behalf of the prince. I'm sorry. I seem to have made some unnecessary enemies, Claire apologized. It's all right. You did the right thing, Roy reassured her, patting her head. Claire blushed. Those punks dare try to take revenge? I won't let them off easy, Roy thought. He scanned the audience and spotted the prince. With a glint in his eyes, he cast a curse on the prince. The prince, who had been chatting with other nobles, suddenly turned red-eyed. He roared and lunged at a nearby nobleman, tearing at his clothes. It seemed he was trying to, well, let's just say he was behaving inappropriately. Fortunately, he was just an ordinary human and was quickly restrained. But the commotion attracted the attention of the shrine maidens, who promptly escorted the prince away. Roy smirked. Unless someone was stronger than him, they couldn't remove his curse. And the curse would slowly drain the prince's life force until he died. Roy then turned his attention back to the main event. A commotion arose from the entrance of the hall. She's here. As the Crimson Princess entered, the hall fell silent. She was accompanied by 4 elementalists, their faces and bodies hidden beneath long robes. "Are those the members of the Inferno?" Fianna whispered, observing them discreetly. "Yes, that's Muir Allenstarl, the military elementalist, walking behind Run. She's a monster from the instructional school." Rubia had mentioned giving him her team members, so Roy had researched the Inferno's members in the library. Muir, noticing Roy's gaze, quickly looked away with a frown. Beside Muir is Lily Flame. She's an elf. Lily was a tall girl with long, emerald green hair and pointed ears that peeked out from beneath her robe. Elves were skilled at stealth and moving through forests. It seemed she was the team's scout and intelligence gatherer. Another girl with vibrant blue hair stood out among the group. She had decorated her robe with extravagant gold and silver ornaments and carried a fan with a flamboyant design. That's the royal emblem of Alpha's theocracy. Could she be Saladia Khan? Claire exclaimed in surprise. Yes, she's the eldest princess of Alpha's theocracy, known as the heir to the title of Twilight Witch. Besides that monster, there's another formidable opponent. Rinslet muttered, wiping the sweat from her brow. The last one is Vivian Melosa, a researcher of cursed seals and a student at Arishia's Spirit Academy. What? A researcher of cursed seals? Is she the one who was illegally selling cursed seals at the academy? Did she sell the cursed seal to my sister? Claire and the others were shocked and angry. Ellis, in particular, was furious. If it weren't for that girl selling cursed seals, her sister might not have resorted to such a dangerous method. She shuddered, remembering her battle against Velsaria. Ren, noticing Roy's presence, walked towards him. The hall fell silent, the only sound being the clicking of her boots against the floor. "Greetings, Roy-sama." Ren, or rather, Rubia, knelt before him on one knee. The audience gasped. The Crimson Princess, the strongest blade dancer, was bowing to the only male elementalist on the continent? This was unbelievable. Even Claire and the others were stunned. The strongest blade dancer, whom they admired, was showing such respect to Roy? What was going on? "Rise," Roy said calmly with a nod. Rubia stood up. "Roy-sama, what are our next instructions?" "Just focus on the blade dance. Don't worry about anything else." "Everything will change after the tournament," Roy replied with a confident smile. "Yes, Roy-sama." Rubia didn't question him and returned to her team. The audience erupted in chatter once again. But Roy and his group ignored them. For figures appeared on the altar, where a bonfire burned brightly. These were the 4 elemental princesses who served the elemental lords. They announced the details of the tempestuous dance. The battlefield was a vast forest in the northern region of the floating island. It was a dangerous area, home to wild beasts and spirits. The Divine Ritual Institute had deployed all its shrine maidens to erect a barrier around the area. It was impossible to escape through normal means. The teams would be randomly teleported into the forest and would have 7 days to compete in the blade dance. There was only one important rule: no killing. The blade dance wasn't just a martial arts competition. It was a sacred ritual performed by pure maidens. Therefore, death would taint the ritual dedicated to the elemental lords. Each participant would receive a special spirit crystal, the magic stone. The victor would be the team with the most magic stones at the end of the 7 days. They had to carry the magic stone with them at all times, though the method was up to them. The magic stone was enchanted. If a participant lost their stone, they had to retrieve it within 1 minute or be forcibly teleported back to the main hall. After 7 days, the 4 teams with the most magic stones would be selected. These 4 teams would then perform the final blade dance before the elemental lords. Even if some team members had been eliminated earlier, all 5 members could participate in the final round. May the elementalists who offer their blade dance be blessed with good fortune and return safely. The 4 elemental princesses recited the blessing in unison. This marked the official start of the main tournament. The participants stepped into the teleportation circle on the altar amidst the cheers of the audience. Before entering the circle, Roy turned to his team. Everyone, do your best. Victory will be ours. That's right. Indeed. Well said. Roy, why are you stealing my lines? Fianna Ray Ordesia, the former second princess of the Ordesia Empire. Ellis Farringart, the captain of the Sylphid Knights. Rinslet Laurenfrost, the eldest daughter of the Laurenfrost family. Claire Rouge, the younger sister of the Calamity Queen. And Roy, their trump card. The 4 girls and 1 boy, each with their own dreams and desires, faced the challenge of the blade dance. Roy and his team were transported to a vast, gloomy forest. A thick mist limited their visibility, and the sounds of birds and beasts echoed through the trees. The terrain is a dense forest. It'll be difficult to predict where the other teams are hiding, Claire commented, scanning their surroundings cautiously. Should I summon a wind spirit to scout the area? Ellis suggested. No, not yet. I don't want to attract attention with spirit magic, Claire replied, shaking her head. You're right. Ellis readily agreed. As the battle began, Roy took a back seat, leaving the fighting to the girls. This was the best way to test their abilities. I'll summon Fenrir to carry our luggage, Rinslet said, summoning her ice spirit, which materialized as a white wolf. Fenrir howled, and with a gaping maw, it inhaled their luggage, making it disappear. That's so convenient. In the Laurenfrost territory, people often get lost in the snow. We sometimes use Fenrir to transport supplies and rescue them, Rinslet explained, petting Fenrir's head. The wolf nuzzled her affectionately. But Roy's magic is more convenient, Fianna commented. That's true. They all agreed that Roy's storage magic was indeed more practical than Fenrir's carrying capacity. Scarlet is so cute, and so is your Fenrir. Ellis said, her eyes sparkling as she looked at the 2 spirits. She had a weakness for adorable creatures. If she saw Roy's Pokemon, she would be ecstatic. Hey, are you sure you want to keep chatting? Roy interjected, his eye twitching. They were in the middle of a crucial competition, yet they were leisurely chatting. He couldn't help but admire their carefree attitude. If this were a MOBA game, they would be flooded with pings for not leaving the base. Ah, right. We need to find a safe place to set up camp, Claire said, snapping out of her daze and regaining her focus as the team leader. This area seemed to be on the outskirts of the Wind Elemental Lord's territory. The divine power here was weak, and the air was chilly. Although their academy uniforms were enchanted with cold-resistant spells, it probably wouldn't be enough to withstand the night's chill. We also need to consider the water source. It would be best to set up camp near a river or lake, Claire added. She wasn't just referring to drinking water. As elementalists, they had to cleanse themselves frequently to purify their bodies. Anyway, our priority is to scout the area. Ellis and I will take the lead, with Rinslet and Fianna in the middle. Claire's formation was sound. And with Roy at the rear, they didn't have to worry about being ambushed from behind. This formation also allowed them to protect Fianna, who wasn't a strong fighter. And Rinslet's position allowed her to snipe enemies from afar. They adjusted their formation and cautiously ventured deeper into the forest. They had been traveling for about an hour. Small, glowing orbs, like fireflies, flitted around them. These were messenger spirits, tasked with transmitting images of the blade dance to the main hall. They were trained not to intrude on anyone's privacy. But Roy knew that their movements were being projected onto the screen in the hall. We can't find any water sources. How big is this place? Ellis complained, growing impatient. This floating island is as large as a small country, so the arena must be quite vast as well, Claire explained. We should make a map, Rinslet suggested, brushing a branch away from her face. My feet are starting to hurt. Fianna whined, and used to walking through such rough terrain. As a transfer student, she hadn't received the same wilderness training as Claire and the others. Do you want me to carry you? Roy offered. Really? Fianna looked at him with surprise and hope. Of course. I did say I wouldn't interfere in your battles, But this shouldn't be considered cheating, right? Roy chuckled. Yay! Fianna cheered, hopping onto his back and wrapping her arms around his neck. Roy could feel her slender form against his back. Damn it! That's so sly. I need to think of something too. Claire and the others glared at Fianna jealously. Ow, my feet hurt too. Rinslet feigned pain, approaching Roy. Really? Roy raised an eyebrow. Was she serious? Yes, so, could I lean on your shoulder? Sure. Thank you. Then, I'll take you up on that offer. Rinslet smiled and leaned against Roy's shoulder. Rinslet, you're so cunning. Roy, I want to lean on your shoulder too. Ellis exclaimed, grabbing Roy's arm. Hey, hey, hey! Look at our formation. Claire protested. Claire, you're so dishonest. You can just say your feet hurt too, Rinslet teased. Don't be ridiculous. I'm perfectly fine. I can walk on my own. Claire retorted, her face flushed. Chapter 127, Ambushed. The girls attack, Leonora strikes at night. Roy suddenly stopped, causing the girls behind him to bump into each other. Roy, what's wrong? Ellis asked, looking at him curiously. Your opponents have arrived, Roy warned. What? The three girls quickly spread out, summoning their contracted spirits and assuming battle stances. A tense silence fell over the forest. Claire focused her senses, trying to detect the enemy's presence. She sensed two distinct auras. Were they scouts, or was there an ambush? I didn't expect them to find us so quickly, Ellis said, her eyes scanning the surroundings. Indeed, attacking so early in the game isn't a very clever strategy, Rinslet agreed. Just then. Here they come. A blinding flash erupted before them. The girls shielded their eyes. But the flash was just a distraction. It was a spirit crystal bomb, a common trap with more flash than actual power. However, it had momentarily stunned them, creating an opening. Roy sensed a presence rapidly approaching him. They're targeting me first, he thought with a sigh. He leaped into the air. A giant hand made of sand erupted from the spot where he had been standing. And then, more appeared, reaching for Roy. Not so fast. Oh, fangs of ice, pierce my enemy. Ice shot. Rinslet shouted, firing an arrow that shattered the sandhands. Roy, above you. Claire warned. Crush him, rock beast spirit, a girl's voice commanded. A shadow loomed overhead. A heavy object, a clump of hardened earth, fell from the sky towards Roy. But Roy had already moved. The attacker, riding a monstrous rock creature, emerged from the trees. She wore a white dress with intricate patterns. That's the team from the Ballister Kingdom, Claire realized. They were the ones who had been glaring at them earlier, following the orders of that foolish prince to eliminate Team Scarlet. And they were targeting Roy first. The rock beast roared and charged towards him. Oh, Sword Saint Knight, I command thee, become my shield. Fianna summoned her knight spirit, Georgios. Georgios swung its sword, and with a flash of light, the rock beast's arm was severed. Their eyes, finally adjusted to the sudden flash from earlier, could now see clearly. The girls regrouped, forming a circle around Roy. A sand giant emerged from the ground. Ugh! Claire quickly backed away. Where's the sand elementalist hiding, she wondered, scanning the area. Earth elementalists often used their magic to conceal themselves underground. But there were no signs of disturbance on the ground. Suddenly, a presence appeared behind Ellis. A girl wielding two daggers emerged from the bushes. Invisible wind blades shot out, slicing through the trees. Clang! Ellis blocked the attack with her windishlance. You blocked my wind blades, impressive, the girl exclaimed. But you insulted our prince. You'll pay for that. You're really here for revenge because of that idiot? Rinslet said in disbelief. Trying to settle a personal grudge during the blade dance was incredibly foolish. I pity you, pathetic Ballister elementalists. How dare you mock me? I won't forgive you. The wind elementalist swung her daggers. Rinslet leaped aside, dodging the wind blades that whizzed past her. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning shot towards her from behind. Just in time, a night spirit appeared, shielding Rinslet from the attack. It was Fianna's Georgios. Thanks, Rinslet said with a grateful smile. We're a team, Fianna replied. They turned and saw a girl with a bow and arrow emerge from the trees. What? How did you detect my sneak attack? The wind elementalist exclaimed in shock. Don't underestimate us, Fianna retorted. They were now facing 4 opponents, the wind elementalist with her daggers, the lightning elementalist with her bow, the sand elementalist who had summoned the sand giant, and the one controlling the rock beast. Claire felt a bead of sweat trickle down her forehead. She was starting to get nervous. A thick mist had enveloped the forest. This was clearly not a natural phenomenon but an elemental magic spell. The last member of the enemy team, a mist elementalist, was also nearby. It's time to counterattack, Claire declared, taking a deep breath and regaining her composure. Yes, we can't let them underestimate us, Ellis agreed, standing at the forefront with determination. Let's do this. We will win. Show them what we're made of. Fianna and Rinslet also expressed their confidence. With Roy there, they weren't afraid of anyone. Claire and Ellis charged forward. Claire lashed out with her flame whip, targeting the sand elementalist. She also unleashed a barrage of fire spells. Flame King's Breath. Ellis confronted the wind elementalist. They were both wind elementalists. But Ellis's spirit was far more powerful. O winds of disaster, roar! Ellis thrust her windishlance, launching wind blades that tore through the trees. The wind elementalist charged towards her with her daggers. Fianna, meanwhile, commanded Georgios to block the rock beast's attacks. The rock beast's attacks were powerful, but they couldn't break through Georgios's defenses. Just then, a bolt of lightning shot towards Claire. It was an arrow fired by the lightning elementalist. Not so fast, Rinslet shouted. Ice shot. She fired an arrow that intercepted the lightning arrow mid-flight. She then fired another arrow. It struck the lightning elementalist, who couldn't react in time. Rinslet's speed in summoning and firing her elemental waff was unmatched. By this time, Claire had defeated the sand elementalist, Ellis had defeated the wind elementalist, and Fianna had subdued the rock beast. Within moments, they had defeated 4 of their opponents. Well done. Roy praised them with a smile and a thumbs up. The girls beamed, proud of their victory. The battle had been so swift that their opponents didn't even have a chance to escape. Well, except for one. The mist elementalist, who had been hiding in the shadows, had fled. But it didn't matter. Roy approached the 4 unconscious girls and collected their magic stones. Sorry, but I'll be taking these, he said. In a minute, they would be teleported back to the main hall. Great! Now we have 4 more magic stones, Claire exclaimed with a grin. But don't let your guard down, Roy warned, handing her the stones. Just then, teleportation circles appeared beneath the unconscious girls. They dissolved into particles of light and vanished. It's a shame that Mist Elementalist escaped. We could have had 1 more magic stone. Don't chase after her. They're a cautious team. I didn't expect to be attacked so soon. Yes, we should find a place to set up camp quickly. Claire nodded in agreement. They weren't getting carried away by their initial victory. I was right about Roy, a girl's voice said from a distance. A group of 5 girls in military uniforms were observing the battle from a hilltop. They were the Dragon Knights, one of the teams favored to win the blade dance. They were using a dragon spirit's dragon eye magic to observe the battlefield from afar. Yes, this is the worthy sacrifice my dragon blood craves, Leonora Lancaster declared, licking her lips as she stepped towards the edge of the cliff. A powerful aura emanated from her, and her eyes glowed with a crimson light. Lady Leonora's dragon blood is awakening. Her vice-captain, Yuri, felt a chill run down her spine. A wave of dread washed over her. The dragon blood was a special ability passed down through the Dracunia royal family, allowing them to wield the power of dragons. This was the fourth time Yuri had witnessed Leonora's eyes turn red. The first time had been 2 years ago, during the Dragon Knight's entrance exam. Leonora had single-handedly defeated all the other candidates in a matter of minutes. It was a terrifying display of power. Fortunately, no one had been killed. If her dragon blood fully awakened, even Yuri and the others wouldn't be able to stop her. Leonora finished her observation and turned to her subordinates. "Tonight, we hunt," she declared. Yuri and the others nodded silently. This was the Dragon Knight's code for launching an attack. As the sun began to set, Roy and the girls finally found a suitable place to set up camp. It was a clearing beside a gentle stream. They could catch fish for food, and the clear water was perfect for their cleansing rituals. Since Roy was in charge of keeping watch at night, the girls took on the task of setting up the tents and preparing dinner. They knew Roy had plenty of food stored in his spatial magic. But they wanted to cook a delicious meal themselves. Night fell. When Roy finished setting up the tents, he found a table laden with food. There were grilled fish with herbs, stew with various spices, and vegetable soup made from dried ingredients. "This looks delicious," Roy commented, sitting down on a stone stool. The girls gathered around the table. "Since it's our first day, we have to boost our morale with a delicious meal. We finally have a chance to show off our skills. Of course, we have to make it special." "Exactly. Try it." Claire and the others were excited to have their cooking praised. "Then I shall dig in." Roy took a bite of the stew. "Is it good?" Rinslet asked nervously. "It's not bad. Is this really made from canned food?" Due to their limited ingredients, they had used canned food in the stew, but it was still quite tasty. Roy's standards were high, thanks to Siko and Shizuka's cooking. I am glad you like it," Rinslet said with a happy smile. It seemed she was the one who had made the stew. As expected of Rinslet, Roy couldn't help but think it was a waste for someone with such culinary talent to be a noble lady. "My position as the chef is in danger." Ellis mumbled dejectedly. "Don't worry, Ellis. Your cooking has a homely feel to it." "I like it too," Roy reassured her. "Homely? Like a husband coming home to a delicious meal." Ellis blushed, her mind wandering. "Claire and Fianna, your cooking is also great," Roy added, seeing their expectant gazes. Just as they were enjoying their dinner, a fiery red light suddenly descended from the sky. The intense light blinded the girls momentarily. Just before it reached them, an ice wall materialized, blocking the attack. The fiery blast had no effect on the ice wall. What was that?" The girls were confused, staring at the ice above them. Then, a massive shadow landed where the attack had struck. A black dragon, its wings spread wide, blocking the moonlight, landed before them. Flames erupted from its mouth, illuminating the night. A girl in a black military uniform emerged from the flames, her crimson eyes glowing menacingly in the darkness. "Leonora, that's a rather rude way to greet someone, for a knight," Roy commented, frowning slightly. Was she being influenced by her dragon blood? "Roy, I have something to say," Leonora declared, raising her hand dramatically. "The dragons of Dracunia always give their all, even when hunting monsters," she finished. Her dragon spirit, Nidhogg, unleashed a torrent of flames from its mouth. Chapter 128, Leonora's Defeat and a Beautiful Morning. A fiery blast erupted from Nidhogg's maw, incinerating the ground and creating a towering inferno. Roy, however, casually summoned a thin ice wall that effortlessly blocked the attack. Through the translucent ice, he could see Leonora's silhouette. "I'll handle Leonora. Claire, you and the others deal with the other three," Roy instructed. "Got it." Claire and the others nodded. They charged towards the remaining members of the Dragon Knights. There were only 4 members on their team this time. Besides Leonora, there was a Wyvern Elementalist, a Salamander Elementalist, and a Drake Elementalist. I'm surprised that the Honorable Dragon Knights would resort to a night attack, Claire commented with a smirk. Our mission takes priority over knightly honor, a girl with short hair replied, wielding a halberd-shaped elemental waff. We're simply employing the most efficient tactics to bring victory and glory to our nation. To show you some respect, I'll introduce myself. I am Uriel Cid, Vice Captain of the Dragon Knights. I'm Claire Rouge, leader of Team Scarlet. Claire summoned her flame whip, and the 2 girls clashed. Meanwhile, Roy faced Leonora. The ground was littered with craters, and flames licked at the sky, threatening to consume the night. Nidhogg, the ferocious dragon spirit, roared, its anger shaking the air. It was furious that its flames couldn't penetrate Roy's ice wall. Leonora, bathed in the pale moonlight, approached Roy. With a gesture, she transformed Nidhogg into a dark, shadowy form. The materialized darkness coiled around her hand, taking the shape of a massive sword. This is my Dragon Slayer sword, the elemental waff of my dragon spirit, Nidhogg. Roy, become my sacrifice, Leonora declared, raising the sword high. A Dragon Slayer sword, huh? Not bad. But it's nothing compared to my Est, Roy retorted with a smirk. He summoned Est, the demon-slaying sword. Is that your sword spirit? An impressive blade. This is the battle I've been waiting for, Leonora said, her eyes gleaming with excitement as she charged towards Roy. She closed the distance between them in an instant and swung her sword with a powerful downward strike. Roy effortlessly blocked the attack. Clang! Blocked? Leonora's red eyes widened in surprise. Impressive. As expected of my chosen opponent. Then take this. She unleashed another ferocious attack. Clang! 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 Their swords clashed repeatedly. Not enough, not enough, not enough? Come on, make my blood boil, Roy. Leonora roared, her attacks growing more and more frenzied. But no matter how she attacked, Roy effortlessly parried every strike. Leonora's aura surged with power. Seeing that her attacks were ineffective, she unleashed her trump card. O dragon, heed my blood's call and tear everything asunder. Dragon King's Roar. This was one of the Dracunia sword techniques. Leonora channeled a massive amount of divine power into her sword, raising it high before bringing it down with devastating force. It was an attack that couldn't be deflected. Even if blocked, the sheer force of the impact would crush the opponent. Compared to elegant and refined sword techniques, this one was brutal and straightforward. But its power was undeniable. Boom! The ground shook, and a cloud of dust erupted. A gust of wind cleared the dust. The ground where Roy stood was cracked and riddled with craters. He had channeled the force of Leonora's attack into the earth. What? He blocked it? Leonora gasped, her breath ragged as she stared at Roy in disbelief. He had effortlessly blocked her strongest attack. Roy appeared before her in a flash. He gazed into her beautiful face, his expression unreadable. The games are over, Leonora. He gently placed his hand on her head. Your little tricks are useless against my overwhelming power. Leonora's aura surged, but then it subsided just as quickly. Roy's magic had calmed her raging dragon blood. Ugh! Her crimson eyes returned to their normal black color. Her dragon blood had been suppressed. She swayed and would have fallen if not for Roy catching her. Leonora, are you all right? Roy asked gently. I am sorry. It was my dragon blood. I acted impulsively, Leonora apologized, her face flushing as she was held in Roy's arms. She closed her eyes, embarrassed. It's okay, Roy chuckled. Why aren't you taking my magic stone? Leonora asked, opening her eyes and looking at him curiously. Eliminating one of the strongest teams right here wouldn't be very fun, would it? Roy replied with a shrug. Humph. I won't lose to you next time. Roy, Leonora declared with a smile, then vanished in a burst of flames. Meanwhile, Claire and the others were battling the remaining members of the Dragon Knights. Suddenly, Yuri, the vice captain, leaped back, dodging an attack. Abort the mission. Everyone, retreat, she ordered. Yuri-sama? Lady Leonora has been defeated. What? The Dragon Knights were shocked, but they were a disciplined team. They quickly retreated under Yuri's command. Don't run! Oh, fangs of ice, pierce my enemy! Ice shot! Rinslet fired an arrow. But it missed, hitting a tree instead. The girls looked towards Roy, but Leonora was gone. Roy, are you alright? Are you hurt? Where's Leonora? Did you defeat her, Roy? The girls bombarded him with questions. Yes, I defeated Leonora, Roy confirmed. Then why didn't you take her magic stone? Claire pressed. Well, wouldn't it be boring to eliminate them so early in the game? Roy replied with a shrug. The girls were speechless. The chirping of birds echoed through the forest, and the crisp morning air sent a chill down Roy's spine. He felt a soft sensation against his cheek, pulling him from his slumber. He opened his eyes to the dim light filtering through the tent. Roy stretched lazily. Something felt strange. As he tried to sit up, he realized his arm was being held by a small, cold hand. Est? His heart skipped a beat as he saw the silver-haired girl sleeping soundly beside him. She was curled up under the blanket, her adorable face like that of a little angel. And on his other side, clinging to his arm, was Renash Doll. Her soft black hair shimmered in the dim light, framing her delicate features. She was so cute, it made his heart melt. Roy, you're awake. Claire entered the tent, her cheeks puffed out in annoyance as she saw Eston run. She had come to wake him up. Claire, you're up early, Roy commented, then turned to the two spirits, who had also woken up. You can sleep a bit longer if you want. Okay, Roy, Eston Rin replied obediently, snuggling back into the blankets and falling asleep. Roy gently tucked the blanket around Est, then snapped his fingers, changing into his clothes with a subtle use of magic. He stepped out of the tent, taking a deep breath of the fresh morning air. Try some of the fruits I gathered, Claire said, gesturing towards a wooden table laden with various fruits. Roy picked one up and took a bite. It was surprisingly sweet and delicious. By the stream, Rinslet hummed a cheerful tune as she stirred a pot of soup. Roy, you're awake. Breakfast will be ready soon, she said, turning around with a bright smile. She wore a cooking apron over her uniform and held a bowl and spoon in her hands. Her attire didn't quite suit her noble lady image, but the contrast somehow made her even more adorable. There's no rush, Roy replied with a chuckle. Where are Fianna and Ellis? Fianna is setting up the barrier, Claire answered, taking a bite of a fruit. And Ellis is probably practicing her swordsmanship by the river. It seemed Fianna had already set up their base. She was quite diligent. For an elementalist, setting up multiple barriers was like building an impenetrable fortress. Not only would their divine power be amplified by the earth's blessings, but the flow of the earth veins could also provide various beneficial effects, such as fatigue reduction. Soon, Ellis and Fianna returned. Rinslet's breakfast was also ready. There was toasted bread, grilled fish skewers seasoned with salt, a wild herb salad, pan-fried mushrooms with butter, and a delicious chicken soup with ginger and spices, a Lauren Frost family recipe. Everything looked delicious. Everyone, dig in. These are all my specialties, Rinslet declared proudly. They enjoyed their breakfast as the sun rose, casting its warm glow over Ragnois. After breakfast, they gathered to discuss their strategy for the blade dance. They sipped the tea Rinslet had prepared while studying a map spread out on the table. This map was based on information gathered by an earth spirit that had scouted the surrounding area. Claire, who seemed to have a talent for drawing, had created the map. However, apart from the area around their protected base, most of the map was blank. They didn't even know the full extent of the arena. "Let's summarize the information we have," Claire said, setting down her teacup and beginning their strategy meeting. There were a total of 24 teams participating in the blade dance. According to their Wind Spirit Scouts, some teams had already been eliminated on the first day. And the stronger teams, like the Quina Empire's Four Gods and the Holy Kingdom of Lugia's Holy Spirit Knights, had mostly established their bases. The girls discussed the information they had gathered. "Roy, what do you think of our plan?" Claire suddenly asked. The four girls looked at him expectantly. Roy, however, hadn't been paying attention to their discussion. In his opinion, any plan was fine. They could just steamroll the competition. "Your plan is excellent. Let's proceed as you've discussed," Roy replied with a serious nod. "My suggestion is to take the initiative," Claire declared. "There's a limited number of magic stones. If we don't actively seek them out, we won't be able to win." Currently, Team Scarlet only had the 4 magic stones they had taken from the Baluster team. Securing a certain number of stones early in the game would give them a significant advantage. They could then defend their base and wait for the other teams to weaken each other before swooping in to collect the remaining stones. But that was just a theory. Attacking a well-defended base was like laying siege to a castle with a small force. It was foolish. In other words, we should take advantage of the fact that the other teams haven't fully established their bases yet and catch them off guard, Claire concluded. Just then, something has entered our barrier, Fianna suddenly exclaimed. The girls tensed up. "Look, what's that?" Claire pointed towards the sky. Roy also noticed it. A winged rabbit was flying through the trees. It was clearly a spirit, not an ordinary animal. "Is that a scout from another team?" "Humph, I'll shoot it down," Rinslet declared, chanting the incantation to summon her icebow. "Wait, stop." Bunk! Claire whacked Rinslet on the head with a spoon. "Ow! That hurt." "What was that for?" Rinslet yelled, tears welling up in her eyes. "That's for being so reckless," Claire retorted. "Look closely." "It's a messenger," she said. The spirit circled above them, then dropped something from its mouth. It was a letter. Claire cautiously checked for traps before opening it. What does it say? It's an invitation to form an alliance. An alliance? The girls exchanged surprised glances. Chapter 129, An Alliance with the Rupture Division, the 13-year-old prodigy. This letter was from the Principality of Rossvale's representative team, the Rupture Division. The end of the letter was signed by their leader and stamped with the emblem of Rossvale. This emblem seems authentic. "I don't think it's a forgery," Fianna said, examining the letter carefully before placing it on the table. "The Principality of Rossvale, huh?" Roy pondered. Rossvale was a newly formed nation, established by a group of radicals who had declared independence from the Holy Kingdom of Lugia. They didn't have a long history, and this was only their second time participating in the blade dance. However, this team of girls wielding high-ranking holy spirits was considered a potential dark horse in the tournament. Their leader, Milla Bassett, is the one to watch out for, Claire commented. If I remember correctly, she's only 13 years old, the youngest participant in this tournament, right? Roy asked, stroking his chin. He had a clear memory of this young prodigy. Why do you remember her so clearly? Claire grumbled, puffing out her cheeks. Oh, my memory has always been good, Roy replied with a shrug and a grin. Roy-san, making excuses is unbecoming of you. You never let up, do you? As expected of the Night Demon King. Your targets range from lowless to mature women. Roy, do you have a preference for young girls? Asked. Why are you joining in on the teasing? Roy exclaimed, his eye twitching as even S joined the chorus of playful accusations. Ahem, so Claire, do you agree to the alliance or not? Roy coughed, quickly changing the subject. The tournament rules didn't prohibit alliances between teams. This could be a trap, Fianna said cautiously. Yes, they could be luring us into an ambush, Rinslet agreed. If it's not a trap, I think it's worth considering, Ellis countered. Even if we don't form a full alliance, sharing information could be beneficial. And I heard that the elementalists of the Rupture Division all wield powerful holy spirits. If we form an alliance with them, they could become valuable allies. As a knight from a military family, Ellis had a practical mindset. Roy, what do you think? Claire asked, deferring to his judgment. The others also looked at him expectantly. It could indeed be a trap, Roy admitted. But I think it's worth the risk. Even if it is a trap, with me here, there's nothing to fear. If Roy-san says so, then I agree, Rinslet said. Ellis and Fianna also nodded in agreement. They trusted Roy implicitly. Then it's decided. We'll meet with the Rupture Division and discuss the alliance, Claire declared. She touched the emblem on the letter and chanted an incantation in the spirit language. The emblem burst into flames, transforming into a small fire spirit. Claire had released the guide spirit sealed within the emblem. It was a low-ranking spirit, only capable of simple tasks like guiding people. But it was a convenient tool for communication, often used by elementalists to contact each other. Their designated meeting point is about 2 hours away on foot. Did they specify how many people should come? No, but we can't all go, can we? That's true. I think we should all go. That way, even if it's a trap, we won't be defeated individually, Roy said, shaking his head. You're right, Claire agreed. Should we abandon our current base? Fianna asked. Don't worry. With me here, anywhere can be our base, Roy reassured her with a smile, patting her head. Okay. Fianna blushed and nodded. They packed some essentials and set off. The small fire spirit, fluttering in the air, led the way. Following it, they wouldn't get lost even in the dense forest. Roy led the way, the girls following closely behind. Claire, as she walked, couldn't help but steal glances at Roy's back. Suddenly, something slippery slithered across her feet, causing her to stumble. Claire, what's wrong? Roy asked, turning around in concern. He saw a small snake coiled around Claire's feet. Roy swiftly grabbed the snake's head and tossed it into the bushes. Are you all right? Did it bite you? He asked, catching Claire before she could fall. I am fine. Just a bit startled, Claire replied, her heart pounding and her cheeks flushed. She couldn't meet his eyes, overwhelmed by a strange shyness. So you're afraid of snakes? Roy teased gently. I am not afraid. I just don't like them, Claire retorted, blushing even harder and looking away. The stray cat was completely frozen in fear, Rinslet commented with a smirk. Shut up, Chihuahua. Claire snapped. All right, that's enough. Let's hurry, Roy said, placing a hand on each of their heads, silencing them. As he was about to continue, Claire caught his arm. Wait for me. Claire? I think this position is quite nice, she mumbled, her head lowered. That sly cat. I want to hold his arm too. Rinslet declared, grabbing Roy's other arm. Let go, Chihuahua. You're hindering Roy. Claire protested. Humph. You let go first. Rinslet retorted. It's fine. This isn't hindering me at all, Roy said with a sigh, looking at the two girls clinging to his arms. He continued walking, pulling them along. Fianna and Ellis glared at them but could only follow. They continued through the forest, taking occasional breaks, until they finally reached their destination. The fire spirit leading them stopped and hovered before an ancient, weathered ruin. This abandoned temple seemed to be a relic from the age of myths, when the human world and the elemental spirit world were still one. Only a few crumbling walls and pillars remained, half buried in the earth. Beyond the ruins was a cliff, and they could hear the roar of a waterfall. This seems to be the designated meeting point, Ellis observed. It looks like the ruins of an ancient temple. And there's a river nearby. It's an ideal location for a base, Fianna commented, surveying the surroundings. Look, there are traces of a barrier here. They followed Claire's gaze and saw a symbol resembling a coat of arms etched onto one of the pillars. It's the emblem of the Principality of Rossvale. It's quite recent, Claire noted, her expression cautious. But the barrier didn't activate when we entered, did it? Yes, it seems the barrier has been destroyed. This place is no longer a functional base. What happened? Did the Rupture Division abandon this base? The girls were confused. The Rupture Division is at the bottom of the waterfall, Roy suddenly said, pointing towards the waterfall. They approached the waterfall. There's a cave behind it, Rinslet observed, her sharp eyes noticing the hidden entrance. That must be where the Rupture Division is hiding. What do we do now? Go in directly? Could there be traps? Claire hesitated. Don't worry, there are no traps. Let's go take a look, Roy reassured them, then used his magic to levitate them and fly down towards the cave behind the waterfall. Ah! The girls yelped in surprise. But they quickly became excited as they realized they were flying. This is amazing. We're flying. Roy is incredible. It's different from using wind magic. Take me flying next time. Don't worry, you'll be able to fly freely soon, Roy chuckled. Once they became devils, they would naturally gain the ability to fly. They arrived at the cave entrance. Let's go in. Roy held Claire and Rinslet's hands, while Ellis and Fianna followed behind. They entered the cave. Dark clouds had gathered in the sky, and a heavy downpour began. You're finally here, a cold voice echoed from the depths of the cave. A bright light illuminated the cavern. A young girl stood before them, holding a glowing spirit crystal. She wore a white knight uniform with red accents. Her dark brown hair swayed as she moved. Her most striking feature was her heterochromatic eyes, one blue and one amber. You're Milla Bassett, the leader of the Rupture Division, Claire said, recognizing her. Yes. Milla nodded. We came here to discuss an alliance, as you requested. But when we arrived at the designated location, there was no one there, Claire said, her arms crossed. What's going on? Care to explain? I apologize for that. I didn't expect that monster to attack our base, Milla explained. Monster? You mean the elementalist from the Inferno? Yes, we were defeated by her. Defeated, by just her? The girls couldn't believe it. Near Allenstarl, a member of the Inferno. The second-ranked military elementalist from the instructional school, known as a monster. She was the one who had attacked the airship with the destroyer spirit. She was indeed powerful. But they hadn't expected the Rupture Division, a team known for their strength, to be defeated by her. So that's why you proposed an alliance? Claire asked. Yes. The alliance will last until we defeat that Inferno member, Milla confirmed. The holy spirits we wield are incredibly powerful. Although I can't reveal their abilities, I can assure you that we'll be valuable allies. Milla's proposal was simple. She wanted to form a temporary alliance with Team Scarlet to defeat the Inferno. Claire considered the offer. Milla was essentially seeking their protection. No one knew that Milla's contracted spirit was actually a strategic class elemental. Such a powerful spirit couldn't be controlled by a single person. Milla's teammates were there to help her control it. But now that her teammates were eliminated, she couldn't utilize the strategic class elemental's power. I agree, Claire said after a moment of consideration, glancing at Roy before nodding. Then the alliance will last until we defeat that Inferno member. Is that acceptable? Milla asked. Yes. But the magic stones we obtain during this time will be divided equally between our teams, Milla added. Okay, I understand, Claire agreed. It would be strange if Milla didn't have any conditions. Requesting a share of the magic stones was reasonable. After all, there was no point in participating if they couldn't obtain any. They reached an agreement. Setting a time limit for the alliance was a natural precaution. After all, only 4 teams could advance to the final round. It would be naive to expect the alliance to last until the very end. "May I ask you something?" Claire suddenly asked. "Go ahead. Why did you choose us for the alliance?" Claire wasn't suspecting any ulterior motives. She was simply curious. "Why do you ask?" "You could have asked the Silent Fortress team. Their base is closer to yours." "Because Roy is an incredibly powerful elementalist," Milla replied flatly. Roy chuckled. Their barrier had been destroyed during his battle with Leonora the other night. Any elementalist with ill intentions or a spirit capable of sharing its vision with its contractor could have easily observed the fight. It wasn't surprising that they knew about his strength. "Don't play coy. I'm talking about your blade dance with Leonora Lancaster last night," Milla said, her gaze unwavering. "You saw that?" Roy asked, raising an eyebrow. "All the members of the Rupture Division witnessed it. We expected Team Scarlet to be eliminated on the first day, but you surprised us by defeating a powerful opponent like Leonora. And I know a certain bargaining chip that might be effective against you." Milla looked at Roy with an unreadable expression. Chapter 130, A Promise Sealed, Meeting Luminaris Saint Lashed. "What?" Roy looked at her with a puzzled expression. "The intelligence unit of Rossvale has discovered your preference for beautiful girls," Milla explained. "What kind of ridiculous intel is that?" Roy exclaimed, raising an eyebrow. "There's no need to hide it," Milla insisted, convinced of her information's accuracy. Claire and the others nodded in agreement. It was indeed true. "I wasn't hiding it." "Fine, I admit it," Roy conceded with a shrug. "Don't worry, I won't judge you," Milla said, then proceeded to unbutton her uniform. "What are you doing?" Claire and the others rushed to stop her. "Honestly, it's a good thing we came with you. Otherwise..." Fianna sighed in relief. "The consequences would have been dire if we hadn't intervened," Rinslet added, shaking her head. "Trying to seduce him with your body? I won't allow it," Ellis declared. Roy was speechless. "Do you really have that little trust in me?" "I wouldn't do anything to her," he protested. "You can't be sure about that," Claire retorted with a smirk. "You don't have to do this, Milla." "You're our ally now," Roy said, sighing. Milla's actions reminded him of Curome. She was willing to do anything to win the blade dance. It seemed the Principality of Rossvale wasn't much better than the Empire. "Really? That's good." Milla relaxed, relieved. She then looked at Roy with a serious expression. "What is it?" Roy asked. "Roy, you'll have to bend down for me to perform the Alliance Oath," Milla explained. "Oh, sorry." The oath Milla referred to was a ritual performed by elementalists to solidify an agreement. It was often used in situations like forming alliances. Roy crouched down to Milla's height and extended his right thumb. Milla pressed her thumb against his. "I hereby swear, under the name of the Elemental Lords, that even if the world fall, I shall not break this oath. If I do, may I be consumed by eternal flames and my shadow turn to ash." Milla recited the oath in the spirit language. And then, as if to seal the oath, "Choo." "Eh?" Milla stood on her tiptoes and kissed Roy on the cheek. "Wait, is that part of the ritual too?" Roy asked, looking at Claire and the others in confusion. "Yes, it is. The oath requires a kiss to take effect." "You can't possibly not know that," the girls replied, annoyed. Roy understood. But with the girls watching, he couldn't do anything too suggestive. He gently kissed the back of Milla's hand. "Is this okay?" "You're surprisingly gentlemanly," Milla commented, surprised. "Ahem, I think the surprisingly is unnecessary." Roy coughed awkwardly. "Let's leave now." "Although I've set up a barrier here, it's not completely safe," Milla suggested. They nodded in agreement and left the cave. Night had fallen, and the storm had calmed down, though it was still raining. Milla looked up at the steep cliff. "It'll be difficult to climb back up," she said. Without her spirit, climbing the cliff would be challenging. "That's easy." Roy snapped his fingers and used his magic to levitate them, lifting them up the cliff. "Amazing! It's so cool to fly like this." Claire and the others chattered excitedly. Milla observed Roy with curiosity. Just then, they heard the rumble of thunder in the distance. Roy focused his hearing and noticed the sound of clashing metal amidst the thunder. "Someone's fighting over there," he said. "What?" the girls exclaimed. "Perhaps it's the Inferno battling another team." "Let's go check it out," Roy suggested. After all, the Inferno had chased Milla's team here. If there was a fight, it was likely them. Claire and the others agreed. They made their way through the forest, their elemental wafts at the ready. The sound of clashing metal grew louder. Roy slashed through the bushes, clearing their path. They arrived at a clearing. What? 3 girls lay on the ground, injured. They were wearing the Aricia Spirit Academy uniform. "Your Team Lux?" Claire exclaimed in surprise. They were also a representative team from Aricia Spirit Academy, their members all top students. After defeating the team who wielded a horde of beast spirits, they had risen to 3rd place in the Academy rankings, securing their spot in the Blade Dance. But now, 3 of them were injured. Roy rushed to one of the girls. "What happened? Who did this to you?" "It's you, Roy-sama." The girl mumbled weakly, still conscious. "Our leader is still fighting in the forest. Please save her." She pointed towards the depths of the forest. Then, the 3 girls dissolved into particles of light and were teleported away. Having lost their magic stones, they were disqualified from the tournament. "Roy." Claire looked at him questioningly. "We're going to save them," Roy declared without hesitation. "They're from our academy." "I agree," Claire said. The other girls nodded. The sounds of battle echoed through the trees. 4 girls surrounded Lux and the girl with the shield. They wore uniforms similar to Milla's, but with a red base and white accents, the reverse of the Rupture Division's colors. "You're the Holy Spirit Knights from the Holy Kingdom of Lugia." Milla gasped. It made sense. Rossvale had been part of Lugia before, so their uniforms were similar. The Holy Spirit Knights. Isn't that Luminaris St. Lecht's team? Rinslet asked. Luminaris St. Lecht was a powerful elementalist who had reached the final 4 in the previous Blade Dance. The Holy Spirit Knights, who wielded holy spirits, were also one of the strongest teams on the continent. "It's Roy-sama." Lux and the girl with the shield exclaimed in relief upon seeing Roy. "Are you from Team Scarlet?" Luminaris asked, her eyes fixed on Roy. "Yes, so I suggest you release them," Claire declared, crossing her arms. "Humph. You think we'll let such a good opportunity slip away?" one of the knights sneered. "You're Milla Bassett from the Rupture Division, aren't you?" Luminaris said, turning her attention to Milla. They had come here after learning that the Rupture Division had been defeated. But they hadn't expected to encounter Team Lux. The Holy Kingdom of Lugia and the Principality of Rossvale were rivals, and it wasn't uncommon for such political conflicts to spill over into the Blade Dance. "Yes, I am the leader of the Rupture Division," Milla confirmed. "If you hand over Milla Bassett's eyes, we might spare you," Luminaris offered. "Milla's eyes?" They all looked at Milla's eyes. She had heterochromatic eyes, one blue and one amber. "Milla Bassett's eyes rightfully belong to our country. We're simply reclaiming what's ours," Luminaris declared. "What's going on?" The girls looked at Milla questioningly. But Milla didn't answer. "It doesn't matter. I won't let anyone harm Milla," Roy declared, gently patting Milla's head. Milla's eyes widened in surprise. She hadn't expected him to say that. Shouldn't he be asking for an explanation? "Don't worry, Milla. If you don't want to tell us, you don't have to. We're allies, Roy reassured her with a smile. Milla's eyes sparkled with gratitude. Claire and the others, however, were a bit annoyed by his trust in Milla. But they didn't protest. They had more pressing matters to deal with. Milla, stay close to me. Don't underestimate me. I'm still the leader of the Rupture Division. I'll leave those 4 to you, Roy said to Claire and the others. Leave it to us, they replied in unison. The 4 knights charged towards them. Clang! 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 Sparks flew as the 2 sides clashed. Ellis, at the forefront, blocked a powerful attack from a knight wielding a massive battle-axe. Bang! Although she blocked the attack, her arm went numb from the impact. Impressive! You're not bad yourself, the knight laughed, then threw her axe. Oh, my swarm of nocturnal familiars, slaughter my enemies. The axe transformed into a swarm of bats. A legion spirit? Ellis exclaimed in surprise. Legion spirits were formed from multiple spirits, making them unsuitable for complex commands. However, they were incredibly effective against those who struggled against multiple opponents. The swarm of bats descended on them like a dark cloud. I'll handle this, Claire shouted, cracking her flame whip. The flames incinerated most of the bats. Capture those who defy justice. Shackles of sin, another knight chanted. What? A pair of glowing shackles materialized from thin air, binding Claire's hands and feet. She couldn't move. The shackles of sin capture those who are careless. The teamwork of the Holy Spirit Knights is unmatched, the knight taunted. You may have captured Claire, but you can't do anything else now, can you? Rinslet sneered, aiming her ice bow at the knight. Oh, fangs of ice, pierce my enemy. Ice shot. An ice arrow struck the knight. Ugh. Although attacks between elementalists in the elemental spirit world didn't cause severe physical damage, they still caused spiritual damage. The knight collapsed, unconscious. The shackles binding Claire vanished. That was a decent tactic, but you underestimate the Holy Spirit Knights, Luminaris declared, charging towards them. Although the Holy Spirit Knights were powerful, Team Scarlet was no pushover. Moreover, the Holy Spirit Knights only had 4 members participating. With one less fighter, they were quickly overwhelmed by Claire, Ellis, Rinslet, and Fianna. Damn it! I can't believe we lost here. I'll remember this, Luminaris spat, her face contorted with anger. She was then teleported out of the arena, disqualified from the tournament. That wraps up this part of What If Reborn in Highschool DxD is a Lucifuge. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released 1 day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.